I know.
Not one of
First,
the three mandatory games, but you might
somebody might be going off the board with that game. Let's talk about Alabama LSU just to get it started, and we will segue into college football playoffs.
All righty.
Alabama is a 6-point favorite. I think at home against LSU.
Yeah, at home.
Yep.
For me, it's very simple in this game. It is quarterback Brandon Harris for LSU. All eyes are on him. I think the game is in his hands. I think I saw he's 10th in completion percentage and 11th in yards in the SEC passing bear. But I know Fournette has been the offense, and I know the success they have had running the ball. But they're going to need him to win this game, and I just don't see it happening. I've said we did our preseason, over under for picks, and watching Alabama this offseason, that front seven, they're probably my favorite unit to watch in college football. That place will be as jacked up as there is. I don't think LSU's defense is what it's been, even close to what it's been in the last couple of years. And that's why I said Harris is the key to this game. I just don't see him doing it, and I like Alabama.
You hit on something that Sunday night when I started plotting out some ideas and storylines for the week, I wrote, for all the talk of great defense in this game, low-scoring games in this game, great running backs in this game, last few years, it's always been a play in the passing game that has decided the outcome. Whether it was the pass to the tight end last year late in the overtime, whether it was the McCarron drive a couple of years ago, whether it was the Reed strip interception fumble in the 9-6 game, Julio Jones before that. It's always been a play in the passing game that's really made the difference in this game. And what Jay Coker did against Tennessee, they needed the drive from him, let him down the field. He's got that confidence now. The other thing, too, is I think the myth of LSU is this attractive underdog. I think that's kind of worn off. If you go back since that 2011 national championship game, last 5 times they've been a dog on the road or away from home. They've lost all those games, haven't covered any of them, and 4 of those losses were more than 2 touchdowns, including 2 21-point losses to the Tide. So I think with where the number is, I think you're going to get a lot of LSU money, being that they're number 2 in the poll, and people think Alabama's overranked, and Alabama already lost a home game, and you see how Alabama's deemed as vulnerable and maybe overrated. But I love what Fitzpatrick and Henry Jackson have done in that secondary. The Alabama defense is the most dominant unit I've seen this year. I trust them to win this game, and I think they will.
All right, so we're going to segue to college football playoff because then coming out of the playoff, we're going to go into Florida State and Clemson. See how I'm sort of sandwiching the playoff.
Somebody prepped up for the podcast. I like it. Must have had a couple less meetings this week.
It's called professionalism. So right now we got for the playoff, Clemson, LSU, Oklahoma State, Alabama. Tell me right now, Felico. Alabama is favored in how many of those matchups?
I believe all of them except for Ohio State. I think Ohio State, is like a 2-point favorite over Alabama, and Alabama's favored over everybody else in the country.
And you think that's accurate?
I think it's probably accurate based on the numbers, but does that mean that I would pick Alabama to beat anybody in the country? No, it doesn't. We did our little mock-up thing, and I think Clemson is the perfect mesh of eye test and metrics. You watch them play. They've got a great defense. They have one of the best quarterbacks in the country. They score points pretty much on anyone. And then you look at their resume numbers. Number 1 in strength of record, top 20 strength of schedule. Been dominant in terms of controlling the game. The FPI number is great. 3 top 40 wins. All of the metrics and the eye test seem to come together with Clemson, and I think that's really the only team in the country you can say that about. Because even Alabama, at times their offense hasn't looked great. Their defense has been great, and they have the loss. I think a lot of people were surprised that Clemson was number 1. And David Pollack and I were talking about this Tuesday afternoon, going back and forth, and we were kind of saying, you know what? There's a real good chance that Clemson's going to be number 1 when this thing comes out later tonight, and indeed they were.
Stanford, I'm looking at you.
I'm irate at these rankings. I know it's the first week, but it is a damn travesty, Chad, that we don't penalize teams anymore for losing. And then when a team loses, say Alabama, it's a fluke. They turned the ball over 5 times. Well, was it a fluke when Ohio State beat you in the playoff last year and you were an 8-point favorite?
You don't think Stanford's being penalized for losing?
So, Exactly.
Stanford's 11 right now.
11.
They got
Florida.
Florida is way too low.
Florida has the best.
I don't want to.
Is there such thing as a best loss?
I don't want to cut you up because you have it, but I was surprised that Florida was this low. I thought they would be higher, and the reason I say that is if you're applying this Alabama strength of schedule, one loss, but it's a good loss, and you got a lot of quality wins. Florida's got the same thing, and their loss came on the road with their backup quarterback at LSU in a game that was tied late, and it took a fake field goal to win them. So it kind of surprised me. If you're saying Alabama is good enough to be ranked ahead of Iowa and Michigan State and TCU and Baylor, then why isn't Florida good enough to be ranked ahead of those teams as well? That surprised me. A little bit of inconsistency there really did surprise me.
He's totally still. He said the classic "everything before but" is a lie. I don't mean to cut you off, but
he struck
That's fine.
He struck a nerve
this anger
with me.
is not going anywhere. But they lost a game. They lost. I don't care how they did. They lost. How many undefeated when we had the BCS era? How many of those non-Power 5 teams made it to the big bowl games?
In terms of
they had to go undefeated, right?
Right.
They had to. No one lost Boise State. No one lost Hawaii. Ever made it? Okay.
Not to the title game, but they did get into the game. Is the
know?
By the way you went undefeated, you're the highest ranked.
But they were undefeated.
Correct.
They didn't have a loss. It was always, hey, one loss and they're out. You have 3 teams from the American Conference that I think are pretty good teams. All right? One loss. One loss.
I've learned my lesson from last week. I'm fairly certain that you're talking about Temple, Memphis, and Houston. So
yes.
we're clear.
Strike the dot bell from before.
So we're clear we wouldn't be talking about Toledo, which is a one-loss team in the MAC.
And Temple's out now, too. But those are good teams. And the fact that they're ranked behind some of these teams is just nuts to me.
All right,
Memphis, what else do you want Memphis to do?
Can I bring some direction to your rant for a second?
Yeah.
Can I do that?
Yes.
So we have Clemson, LSU, OSU, and Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
Not in the top 4, but undefeated, we have Michigan State, Baylor, TCU.
Yep.
You would have any one of those teams instead of Alabama, or one specific team instead of Alabama?
All undefeateds ahead of them. Because here's why, Chad.
Hold on for a second. Who would you put right now instead of Alabama of those 3?
I had Michigan State, and I did not have Ohio State in my 4 because I still think that's looking at what they did last year.
So you have
and
Michigan
we're
State.
not supposed to
You
look
would have
at last
Michigan
year.
State and Baylor.
No, I had Michigan State and Memphis. I'm
Wow.
going most deserving. Who has the best wins? That's what I want to see. I know this isn't, and everything's going to play out. But right now, you need to have these teams up there. All right? If they lose, fine, knock them out. You can't have a team that's already lost all the way up there.
Well,
who's going to pass them out?
What's Michigan State's win?
Michigan.
Wow.
It's better than Ohio State's.
See,
right?
you just hit on something right there, though. And I got this wonderful sheet right here, which I have things circled and starred and squared. Here's Ohio State, by the way. If you're a resume type person, and that's what you're judging it on, deserving. Straight the schedule 71. They have 1 win against a team in the FPI top 40. 1. Everyone else in the top 8 has at least 2.
Mm-hmm.
They've got 4 wins against teams with an FPI number of 80 or worse. Clemson's got 1. LSU's got 1. Alabama's got 1. Notre Dame's got 1. Baylor has 4 as well.
Mm-hmm.
Memphis has 5, by the way.
Yeah.
But Memphis has a much better win against Ole Miss than Alabama does against anyone. Michigan State, I'm not feeling you there at all. They're not a top 20 team.
I'm with Felipe.
Any efficiency rating out there. Their schedule's outside the top 50.
So why do you have Ohio State ranked ahead of Memphis or Michigan State?
Because I think they're a better team.
Okay.
I've watched both teams play, and I think
but
Ohio State
this is the fundamental value in the playoff committee, is that they are driving debate and conversation around this topic, and they are making distinctions based on eye test, based on resume, based on how they feel a team is improving. And that's the beauty of this process that the BCS didn't allow for, is it allows for teams to get better as the year goes on.
And I think the first thing I'll say, okay, I've watched all these teams play. Who do I think is the better team from watching them? And then I'll look at all the numbers and say, well, you know what? They have 2 losses, even though I think they're really good. They've lost twice, so you can't put them ahead of a team with 1 or 0 losses. But I think you can with a lot of cases with 0 or 1.
All right, we're taking a break for a second. We're going to come back. We're going to finish this debate, and we're going to talk about the rest of the games and the lines as we get on with the day.
Hey there, everybody. We're Mike and Mike. It's that time of year again, Greeny. You're absolutely right, Golick. The college football playoff is here. And we're giving you the chance to be in with us at the national championship game. Here's what you do. Listen live every weekday for your chance to win the Mike and Mike at the college football playoff sweepstakes presented by AutoZone. Listen live for that winning word, then just enter for your chance to win. We're picking a winner every week. Who's in?
Visit ESPNradio.com/MikeCFP for complete contest rules.
All right, so I want to finish the debate because I know Stanford has something he wants to stay, and at some point we are going to segue into the Florida State-Clemson game, which was, I just thought, a very clever way of getting to the college football playoff debate. You know, nice production by me, not so much by Dob.
Okay. The chair last night, Jeff Long, said, talking about wins, right? Out-of-conference wins. It's pretty obvious that's why Baylor and TCU are low, right? They don't have any good wins. All right, out-of-conference schedule. Who did LSU play in out-of-conference? They had McNeese, that was Kansas, Syracuse, Eastern Michigan.
And Western
all right,
Kentucky.
and they're 2.
In Western Kentucky.
And they're 2 because they beat who? Florida is probably their best win, right?
A really good win.
They're 2 because Leonard Fournette is the best player in the country.
Based on their rankings, the win over Florida is the 3rd best win in the country this year. Ole Miss's win over Alabama is the best win. Mm-hmm. Clemson's win over Notre Dame is the 2nd best win. And LSU's win over Florida is the 3rd best win, if you're going true to the rankings here.
I just find it really hard, Chad. The one quick thing on the Big 12, no surprise, you're going to need an undefeated champion.
Yes, you are.
Yes.
That's the only way you're getting one in. But even that, is that team going to jump Alabama if Alabama's already at 4?
Well, this is something that I heard Brad and I were
talking. No way they're doing what they did.
Here's the thing.
You can finish your point. I have my point, then we're getting to an actual game with point spreads. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, that's what Brad Edwards was talking about before. If Alabama wins out and Ole Miss happens to win out, and you got Alabama at 11-1 that's not in the SEC championship game, are they going to slide them down from the top 4? That'll be even more controversial.
That is the perfect segue
into
the point that I want to make, which is this is the beauty of the playoff committee. It is the beauty of the setup.
There's no beauty in this.
Is that it is?
Yes, there
by
is.
The way,
passion. It's great.
Stanford. It's all beauty because it's not completely relying on numbers and metrics and stats. There is a human element to this, and that is what's interesting about it. Is they get to take into account. All right, this is what we were thinking this week. This is why we thought it. Other things have transpired. Other circumstances have come to the fore, and now we are thinking about. All right, well, maybe Alabama isn't what we thought they were. We're going to move them down. Michigan State did this. Maybe we're going to move them up. Notre Dame did this. Maybe we're going to move them down. There are ways to think about this that allows for something that isn't so rigid as prescribing to a certain set of metrics. I'm the host. We're done with that part of the conversation. You can rub your head all you want, but we're moving on to Florida State.
We'll talk about this with SVP later.
Florida State plus 12 at Clemson. Stanford, I'll let you go first because unless you need time to transition right now. You look like you could use a minute.
No, man.
Florida State at Clemson. Florida State 12-point underdog.
All right. It's not a night game. 3:30. I was there the last time for this massacre happened at Death Valley. Florida State, it just doesn't do it for me this year. Bear and I have picked against them numerous times this season. I watch them. They just don't have the dudes up front anymore like they did. Your old Timmy Jernigans and those kind of guys. And when did we know Golson wasn't playing last week?
That came out pretty late. I know they said he went through concussion protocol. I almost get a feel that was almost an audition last week for Sean McGuire because I don't know if they're totally satisfied with Golson. He's holding on to the ball a long time. And I mean, last week their passing game was better than it had been all year.
He did throw 3 deep jump balls.
Rudolph made some plays. Yeah, he did. And remember, McGuire played last year against Clemson.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what they do at quarterback if Golson plays or McGuire plays. Golson hasn't been turning the ball over, but who knows?
No, getting back to Clemson, your thoughts. I asked Deshaun Watson, is he that elite a couple weeks ago in one of the games that we were asked to pick, the Miami game. And he's been unbelievable since that game. They're at home. Clemson, 12 points is a lot, but it's a lot for the reasoning of we just talked about the quarterback position at Florida State, which they haven't had a question, in the 2 years at Jameis. I guess Clemson right now. I haven't finished crunching my numbers. I'm still looking at the playoff rankings last
shockingly, Felica has already turned in his work for this week's column on Chalk, the Stanford and Bear column, and Stanford hasn't done anything.
Yeah, I have it. I have half of it right here.
Uh-huh. So, Felica, tell me what you're thinking.
I posed the question: is this the biggest football game for Clemson since they won the national championship? Mm-hmm. I mean, you think about it.
Was that the Perry Tuttle years?
That was the Perry Tuttle years. Yeah. I mean, you think about it. This is their chance to topple the ACC champ. It's a one-game season, essentially, to get to the college football playoff. If you don't beat them this year, they're probably as down as they're ever going to be. You're a double-digit favorite on your home field, and now you got the number one bullseye on your back for the college football playoff. That did them no favors last night in terms of pressure. And I think on paper, it's not even close. Clemson's top 5 unit offensively, defensively. Florida State doesn't have a win over a top 40 team. I just get the sense that Dalvin Cook is going to play and he'll do enough. Their defense will make enough plays to keep him hanging. I don't think Florida State will win the game, but I think there's a lot of pride and still a lot of talent on Florida State, and I think they'll make this much more difficult for Clemson than a lot of people think, but I do think Clemson wins.
So I agree with what I'm gathering from your analysis here is that you think Clemson will win, but they won't cover.
Correct.
And I think I agree with Felica on this. I think Stanford is handicapping this game as if it happened last week, and he is handicapping the game as if, wait for it, human emotion isn't part of the conversation, and which is kind of like his bias against the College Football Playoff Committee.
No, the one thing to me in this game is this.
He's so mad right now.
The last time Florida State was a double-digit underdog,
they got drilled at Florida.
Right?
Yeah.
So that was
Bobby.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Jimbo has never been in this position as a head coach, and I'm really interested to see what type of game he calls because no one has to be looking forward to being an underdog more than Jimbo. I mean, with the past couple of years that going on, I just think Clemson's good enough to overcome that. And is this game bigger than the one 2 years ago when Jameis came in? They were undefeated.
It probably wasn't at the time, but I mean,
it is now.
It is now.
Right.
I guess it's the biggest until it isn't.
Can't wait to see what Davos.
If we were doing Felica-isms, stop, then we would just say, I guess it's the biggest until it isn't. We're gonna use that.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah. Call it a bearism. All right. Oklahoma, this is another one that's going to have an impact on potentially on what the College Football Playoff Committee thinks of these teams. But Oklahoma State at TCU, Oklahoma State is a 5-point underdog. Great matchup. Felica, let's start with you.
I just want to stop with any of these Big 12 games. It's a video game. I mean, I just have no feel for them. I'll
kick field goals.
I have no feel for this conference. I mean, I guess a 17-point lead in this conference means absolutely nothing with some of the defenses that have played in that league. I guess it's good offense. I don't know, but last time a top 10 team came to Stillwater, they walked out a loser. Baylor a couple of years ago. I still like a couple of players on the Oklahoma State defense. Agba and some good. They got players. Had some big plays in the return game.
TCU, they play last week?
Yeah, they did play last week. They ruined my triple not so fast down there in Lubbock. I'm not bitter about that at all. 17-0. Oh, perfect, great. Hey, Kirk, look, it's 14-0, 3 minutes into the game. A lot of paper in that one, by the way, but paper left in the game, I should say, at that point. I don't know. TCU was vulnerable on the road at Kansas State, vulnerable on the road in Lubbock, struggled more than you would think at Iowa State. I had to pick the game in the column due to our mean editor, Ben Fox, but I would avoid betting on any of these Big 12 games personally because I just can't. You don't know who has the ball last, basically going to win. I'd take the points at home with Oklahoma State. They might be playing for a greater purpose down there in Stillwater right now with what happened a couple of weeks ago.
Just to be clear, I misspoke when I said Oklahoma State was at TCU. I meant the other way around. So Stanford,
what was that again?
I misspoke.
You misspoke?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's owning up to it.
All right.
I want clarity.
Well, maybe somebody didn't hear you say it, and I want to make sure they heard
you. I want the listeners to understand that I made a mistake.
Mm-hmm. TCU.
Sometimes I make a mistake by inviting certain people on the podcast.
I'll leave.
I know where the door is. You can tell me to go.
Just tell me what you're thinking about this game.
A lot, and a lot of it is what Chris says. Like, you kick field goals in these games, you lose. You're asking to lose. And then what happens? You go for it in astronomical situations, and then your back's against the wall and you're down 2 scores instead of being up 1 score. It's like ping pong to me. People say video game. I just ping pong. It's just, all right, who's going to hit? Nice shot. Oh, I got a better shot. Whose serve is it? Oh, my serve. All right, I got a good return shot. Here you go. It's tied. Oh, down 21. All right, I can come back. TCU has been here more. I've watched Oklahoma State. Their quarterback situation still, I don't like. I don't think the players look uncomfortable to me. But with the emotion factor of a couple weeks ago, Gundy is great in these situations. It's not a night game though. 3:30. I give the edge to TCU there. I like TCU in this spot. I like the experience they've had in those situations that Bear has talked about. Struggles on the road earlier this year, and I think when it comes down to it, they know how they felt last year, and I still think that matters to them more than any other team in the country. If you're looking at last year's motivation,
I do feel like the sense that I'm getting is that you guys would like to avoid being assigned any Big 12 games at any time throughout the rest of the year. Is that accurate?
We already talked about this.
There's like so much.
No, I'll be honest with you. I was looking up to see what the announcements for the upcoming college football playoff championship games, and if I'm still here by the 2018-2019 season, I'll be excited to get out to Santa Clara there, close to the stadium.
I just feel like there's so much tension right now between me and Stanford. And
I don't think so.
Where it came from.
I don't think so. He's fired up about the standings.
He is very fired up, and I love that passion.
It's awesome, though, because just going back and forth with people last night, people talk about why do you do this show? It means nothing. Well, you're the ones out there yelling at me because I said that Alabama had 4 top 30 wins, and I'm just putting a fact out there, and it's like the end of the world. It's going to change next week.
So now that we have sort of the official standings out, we played this game a little bit last week. If you were to place future odds on it, you make a futures bet right now on somebody, who would it be on?
Alabama. They're going to get in.
Florida.
Wow. Interesting.
If they win out, they're in. If they're the SEC champ, they're in. And right now they're 40-1. Florida. Absolutely Florida.
What are they right now?
40-1 is what someone told me.
What's their ranking right now?
Oh, they are. They're 10 right now.
They're 10.
But they have the game against Florida State, and they'll rematch with either LSU or play Alabama, or rematch with Ole Miss in the SEC.
Right.
If Florida wins the SEC at 12-1, they are absolutely in the playoffs.
Did anybody do the BCS numbers?
I don't think so. Brad might have. You'd have to ask him.
It'd
be interesting to see what
that's what I want to see.
Like which version of the BCS are you using? Are you using the spade and neutered computers like the BCS wanted that doesn't really look at the score or scoring margin, or do you look at the actual real computers, which I think you should probably look at?
2, I think. You guys are so high on Florida State. They're at 16. That's where Ohio State was last year at the first rankings. They have everything in front of them. They have the game against Florida. They have Clemson this week. They have ACC title game. You got to think they get in.
2 top 10 teams late in the year.
That's true. And Oklahoma. They run the table. I think they get in.
I was going to say Oklahoma State. I thought it was going to be your second one because they're, 12 right now? 14 right now?
I think Oklahoma can do it.
And they have TCU, Baylor, and OU in Stillwater. Yes, I don't know what their number is, but they're a team that with those 3 games at home, you would think that there's a good chance they could win any of them.
I'd love to see the teams that are ranked behind Iowa, their odds compared to Iowa.
Well, I'm glad that you segued, because Iowa is playing probably the second best team in the state of Indiana this weekend.
The second best team.
And they are 6.5-point favorites over the Indiana Hoosiers, which I take that as a sign of strength for Indiana's program, that they're going on the road playing an undefeated team. And
it's actually in. It's in Wilmington.
You know what? I got my
There we
schedule
go.
screwed up.
Somebody's all
I was going to say,
flustered.
you did a
schedule's
little
screwed
ad.
They're playing at home, and they're only 6.5-point dogs against an undefeated team.
Well,
Break it down for me.
here's what they've seen. They've seen Indiana play Ohio State and Bloomington to the gun. They saw Indiana play Michigan State and East Lansing deep into the game, and if it wasn't for a missed short field goal, a couple of extra points, and one of the worst backdoor bad beats of the year, they were right there in that game. Their offense is good. They're going to score points. The problem is they turn the ball over a lot. They make a lot of mistakes, and Desmond King and the Iowa defense tend to capitalize on that. But I think they're in this. I think this is a 4-quarter game, but I think ultimately there'll be a turnover. They won't be able to slow down the Iowa running game, and I think Iowa will emerge with a win. But I would take the Hoosiers in the points in this one.
I like the Hoosiers on the field.
Wow.
I think they could. Bear touched on it. I think they score. Iowa, I don't care what you say. Defense is great. In a game like this, when you're on the road, you are going to have to keep up scoring. And Ohio State did, and that's why they won. And say how'd they do it? Well, Elliott broke a lot of long runs. Iowa's not breaking those kind of runs. They don't have breakaway guys like that. I like the Hoosiers on the field.
I'll tell you what, if you ever responded to my lunch invitations, if the Hoosiers won this game, I would totally take you to lunch and probably buy you one of the really fancy candy bars in the new ESPN cafeteria.
That just broke all of the tension between you two. It's like a new relationship
I would do
between
it.
you guys.
That's
I can just see the cloud. Just
can you take your heart out of this game? It's okay if you say no. I've been there many times.
I don't know that I can, but I don't know that I need to, because the truth is, like, when you're an Indiana football fan, like me and the other guy, like it's not like you have expectations. So if they lose, I'm not going to be like, it's not going to ruin my weekend because I have no expectation they'll win.
Even if they're winning, say, with 2 minutes left.
Listen to me. I have been through so many games with Indiana where, like, they were close and then they end up disappointing, and so it's like that is the only expectation.
All right. I think we should pick that game instead of the Big 12 game.
All right. Well, I'm okay with that, but you got to talk to
You're the boss over the boss.
You got to talk to Fox. But I'm okay with that.
Maybe he'll listen and he'll just agree with what we just did.
Exactly.
Probably not.
Stanford Steve Coughlin from Chalk and SportsCenter, SVP on SportsCenter. Chris the Bear Felica from College Game Day and Chalk. Thank you, as always, for coming on the podcast.
Check out the column.
Please do check out the column. I got 10 games on there.
Woohoo! I don't have 10.
We'd like to thank you for listening to today's show. For more great podcasts,